Welcome to the Growing People Podcast. I'm John Losey, and let's talk about comfort zones. So I do a lot of workshops and trainings, and sometimes you call it team building, sometimes you call it professional development. Whenever I lead a workshop, I always ask the participants, well, what do you want to get out of this? And almost every time, at least one person says something along the lines of, I want to get out of my comfort zone, or I want to expand my comfort zone. I want to know my zone of comfort that much better. Well, my question to them, usually the first question I ask is, well, what do you mean by comfort zone? And it's a term that's used so often, and yet people haven't thought about what it really means. Usually after an uncomfortable silence, somebody will say, well, comfort zone, isn't that place where you're comfortable? And while that person has a keen grasp of the obvious, that definition isn't necessarily helpful. Some people might follow up and say, well, it's a place that I've been before. It's a place that I'm familiar with. Well, that's not always true, because there's familiar places that I've been that all of a sudden I've realized that, man, this is not comfortable. Even though I've been here 100 times, this is brand new. So it's not necessarily the location or your current level of experience. When I talk about comfort zones, I like to think about it in terms of success and failure. You're in your comfort zone when there's the possibility of failure, because there's always the possibility of failure. But as soon as it's more likely than not, as soon as the probability of failure is greater than the probability of success, you're probably stepping out of your comfort zone. So when we talk about a comfort zone model, the familiar model that I've seen a lot, it kind of looks like a dartboard or a bullseye target. And you have in the middle of this target is an area that's labeled the comfort zone. And like I was saying before, I use success and failure as a measure of what that line is. As a matter of fact, I'll even put a number on it and say, as soon as you cross the 50% chance that you're going to fail, as soon as it's more probable that you're going to fail, you're in your growth zone. That's the next zone out. The growth zone is when all of a sudden you realize, man, it's no longer possible, it's probable, more likely than not, I'm going to fail here. You can call it disequilibrium. You've been spun around. All of a sudden, I'm in this place that I don't feel balanced. Some people would call it the cognitive dissonance. All of a sudden, you're acknowledging that your thought systems and the current skill sets no longer fit the environment or context you find yourself in. You are not equipped to be successful in this new world. That's when growth starts. It's no fun. As a matter of fact, you might ask yourself, who in their right mind would put themselves in the growth zone? And while many people are really excited about growing, or at least say they are, very few of us intentionally or even know how to put ourselves in disequilibrium. It's really, really difficult. As a matter of fact, more often than not, I would say almost all the time, we find out we're in the growth zone by looking in the rearview mirror. We start to get all those cues of, oh, wait a minute, I don't know what's going on here. This is unfamiliar. I don't know what's happening. And the anxiety level increases. And that's when you look around and you say, wow, I'm in the growth zone. As an individual, it's crucial that you stop and understand that you're in the growth zone, because then you could take advantage of it on purpose. As a teacher and leader, you need to, first of all, create an environment in that comfort zone where people trust you enough to follow you over the edge, where you've created enough trust, you've created enough willingness to fail that they're willing to go there. And part of that is helping people realize that failure doesn't need to be fatal. You've created an environment, a place where people are willing to find themselves in the situation where they're probably going to fail. And while you can't take away the consequences of failure, you can make that an acceptable state to be in and help make sure that they learn from any failures they experience. So as soon as failure is probable, you're probably in the growth zone. And that's when, as an individual, you need to stop, take a breath, and start to explore, what are the new skills that I can try out here? What are the new competencies and insights and attitudes that I can adopt to see if they'll work in this new context. Now, outside of the growth zone is what we call the retreat zone. The retreat zone is where failure is not only possible, it's not only probable, failure is assured. And the last hope that you could be successful is gone. People, they truly retreat. They get frustrated. They might lash out, or they might just get quiet, but they buy out. They're no longer with you. And if they go into the retreat zone, any lessons they learned in the growth zone are probably lost. So it's important as a leader and as a teacher, if you find that people, individuals or your group is going into that retreat zone, get them back into a comfort zone, that place where they can start to feel successful as soon as possible, because there's probably some healing that needs to happen. Now, I also talk about another zone that's deep, deep inside the comfort zone, which I call the don't waste my time zone. That's where you shoot so far below their insights and skills that you insult them. You insult the person when you ask so little of them that they're not challenged at all. And they get frustrated because they're insulted. You've insulted their abilities and intelligence. They might lash out. They might buy out, walk out, but you've just lost engagement. And notice the behaviors of the retreat zone and the don't waste my time zone look exactly the same. So as a teacher and as a leader, you're going to have to ask. Before you start to assume anything, you might think you're boring somebody to tears when really they're right on the verge of retreat. You need to ask them, what's going on? It's that simple, but that easy to miss. As soon as I start to interpret their behavior for them, there's chances are I'm going to misinterpret that and I'll lose them, whether through buying out and wasting their time or buying out in retreat. Now, there's an important dynamic that's at work with these growth zones in using comfort zones and growth zones to get people going. Because in the growth zone, you're working hard. You're looking around, you're trying to figure things out, and that's tiring. So if you keep a person or a group in the growth zone too long, that fatigue is going to mount, and you might push them into retreat just because you kept them out there too long. And this is where the art of comfort zones, the art of teaching and leading using disequilibrium and cognitive dissonance comes into play. Because while you have to lead them out into the growth zone, you also need to be paying attention so that you can lead them back in to the comfort zone, because that's where they integrate the lessons into their life. I like to think of it like working out. If you like to go to the gym and lift weights, one of the things that you'll be told is don't do the same muscle groups every day. You need a chance to recover. Because when you lift weights, what you're actually doing is you're breaking down the muscle fibers. And you're breaking them down and you're working them out. And then you gain muscle mass and you gain that back when it recovers, when you're resting. When you take somebody into their growth zone, they're getting exhausted, they're really having to try new things, success and failure, and exploring. And in order for them to integrate those lessons into their life, you need to take them back to a comfort zone, a place where they can reflect, a place where they can really kind of get some perspective on what just happened and how it's going to change how they go about their life. So the art of comfort zones is knowing when to push people and individuals and when to bring them back in so that they can gain those lessons. So my encouragement, if you are a teacher or a leader and want to use comfort zones on purpose, understand that line between comfort and growth is really about success and failure. And you need to help people get into that place where they realize they don't have the skills that they need. That's when they become eager to learn. And then you also need to know when to take them in and out so they don't retreat. And you don't buy out because you bore them to death. So that's comfort zone and the dynamics of how to use them on purpose.